Oh, hello
Ladies
there.
and gentlemen, welcome
Welcome
back to
back
episode. What number is this?
to it's 6.
Six. Lucky episode 6, my friend.
Lovely, lovely 6.
Today, we are going to be discussing something that everybody has been asking us to discuss because I think we kind of skipped steps 1 through 4 and went into like steps 8, and we missed step 1, and that
Yeah, we did.
is the beginning of it all. Diagnosis, how we came to know, and what maybe other people, because if there's a lot of people out there who either just received a diagnosis for them or someone they love, or they have not yet, but they have inklings of an idea. This is our story about diagnosis, or
And how we
lack
got here,
thereof,
how we got on this lovely spectrum,
how we
and
came to
how
be,
we were introduced to it. Was
and
it a
what
firm push or was it a gentle hand?
was it. A gentle hand, or was it a stern handshake, or was it a slap across the brow?
You can't
I
hear
don't.
yourself, right? Because I had to take my earphones out because they were like jumping around the place. So I've just put you on loud, but I put you on quiet.
So wait, you cannot hear me?
I can hear you, but it's
Oh,
quiet.
I
That's
can't
funny.
hear you twice, so that's a nice thing.
As long as we can't hear you twice, we're all good to go.
So why don't you kick it off, man? Because I have a different diagnosis history than you do.
I feel like, yeah, I feel yours is more complicated than mine.
It is a little more. And I also think this will highlight some differences between the way that our countries maybe handle things.
Yeah.
So I'm
So my
excited to
first
hear.
question actually would be to you, would be
Hit
when
me.
you were going in for diagnosis, like, were you aware that that's what you were going in for?
Okay. See, maybe I ought to go first then, because the difference between me and you when it comes to our stories is I never received the benefit of a proper medical go in and be diagnosed. And thereby, well, actually, this is interesting because I haven't done enough research. I don't even know what help is available for people like me because I've always avoided, like the plague, going to the doctor.
I do the
And
same.
yeah,
When I get there, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm good.
yeah, I know all those things that were bugging me. They don't I think they're good now. We're fine.
Yeah, my leg
But
fell
yeah,
off, but don't worry
I could do with one. The Lord
about it.
seemed to gift me with two.
We'll just regrow it. It'll be
Yes.
fine.
So here's the deal with me. So from my earliest childhood memories, I remember having teachers and counselors and all these different people in the school systems telling me and telling my family that there was something definitely different. Um, Back then, because I mean, I was in kindergarten in 1986, 86. I mean, that was a long, long time ago. And there
Yeah.
just wasn't, at least here, and at least in my sphere of influence, there just wasn't the information out there about ASD and about autism that there is now. And so for the beginning of everything, they just thought there was something different with my brain. And they thought there was something wrong with me, but they didn't know what. And so it
See, that's
always
a
just be
similarity right there.
okay, good. And there was I think everything was just spoke of in these terms of like really vague, like, oh, there's something seems to be a bit different. Tyler learns a bit different, or he
I
seems a
learned
bit off.
I learned about autism as in within children because I did like a childcare course.
Okay.
And literally, my understanding of it before the diagnosis was literally it's a behavioral thing. It's
Yeah.
like that's all I knew. It's like, oh, just change your behavior. That's like the actual extent of it was never there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was I
There was
just
there was
literally
definitely no depth.
no, none at all. And I
So that,
studied that module.
yeah.
Um, I came out of that with the understanding that it was nothing more than just a behavior shifter.
Yeah, like you need to choose to be better.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is so dangerous.
Yes.
And so for me, that continued all the way through. And I think I think in our first or second episode, I talked about the experience in when I was in high school about being accused of cheating and all of that stuff. So that
Yeah.
even shows you that like still all the way up through my high school years, they had no idea what was going on. And it was just, oh, maybe he has ADD, maybe he has anxiety, maybe he has this, to the point where, and I think we mentioned this too, they even tried to put me on some medication, and I took like a week of it and I threw it down the toilet because I was a zombie. And it really, I think the very first time I heard the term autistic and Asperger's was when I finally went to college. My freshman year, I took a course on psychology, and it was a night course. And I remember the professor who taught it, he would ask to meet with me after, and multiple times he said, hey, have you ever thought about, maybe doing a screener or maybe seeing someone about some mental health stuff? And I was like, well, what do you mean? What kind of stuff? He's like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how you would fare on an autism screener. And I was always like, wait, what? Because that was the first time I'd ever heard that.
Just go out there and try it.
Hey, if you're bored Saturday night, go bowling, come home, do an autism screener. Why not?
What's your Saturday? Come on over. I got a place. I got something we can do.
Yeah. And so I remember being like, oh yeah, that sounds crazy. And just to show you, when he said that, I remember thinking like, this guy's crazy, man. Autistic kids, like, you traditionally think about those in pop culture as like the kids that are nonverbal and maybe rocking back and forth or like sitting in a corner. And I remember thinking, what is he talking about, man? Like, there's no way. And so continue that on. I ended up studying psychology. Every professor was like, hey, have you ever thought about this? And I always just was like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Even though every marker and signifier was there, I just was like, oh no, I'm sure I'm great. This is totally normal. And weirdly,
the dream.
Yeah, exactly. So then this is where it comes full circle. And then we're going to get to you because I'm tired of talking about myself. The real first like non-official diagnosis for me came when I met Sarah, my wife. And she was a special needs teacher for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And this is everything she studied. She specialized in working with kids with autism.
Yeah, she mentioned that.
Yeah. And after we started working together, she kept dropping these subtle little hints that like, hey, have you ever thought about there might be something going on with you? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And so finally she said, I have something fun to do. Let's do a screener. And the one that she gave,
seems like everybody wanted to give you a screener.
I know. I should have taken that cue from the very beginning and been like, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. So we did the screener, and it was like on a weighted scale of, I think, like 0 to 36 or 40 or something like that. And the closer to the 36 or 40 you got, the more autistic tendencies you showed. And so Sarah took it as a baseline, and Sarah scored 8. And then I took it and I scored 35.
Solid number.
Yeah. And Sarah's like, wow, you literally like aced this test. And I was like, well, what does that mean? She's like, full on, it means you have Asperger's. Like, that's what's going on. So fast forward, I've talked to more mental health professionals about this. That's exactly what it was. So my diagnosis story literally was like this round wandering path of everybody knowing it, but not being enough information.
Push you down there. And then
totally.
You're like, oh, I'm good.
I'm good, man. I'm missing body parts, but hey, I'm still functioning. And that's literally what it was. And so I think that was it, man. That was the beginning of all of it for me, was hints and, not accusations, but like finger pointing at like, I wonder if you got this checked, if this would be
You
this.
seemed way more prepared than I did. Because I think the unpreparedness of mine was just like what hit me the hottest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't explain why. Like, I don't think there's a reason, but like sometimes with Asperger's, some weeks are just bad. Not necessarily bad, but like light is suddenly brighter, or noise is suddenly louder.
Absolutely.
And I remember going through a phase like that quite often, and I don't really remember why. So I went to the doctor with my friend because she was like, "Go and see a doctor. There's something going on in your head. Whatever." We were like, oh, "Okay, whatever it is." I don't care.
Subtle, very subtle.
I was like, "It's nothing major. We'll be fine." And then, of course,
you're gonna get through this.
And then the next thing I know, he's like, "Well, I'm gonna just forward you to like this mental health team." I was like, "All right, cool." And then again, nothing of it. And then they do a test. There was like 3 stages to me. So they do a test, and then whatever they think it is, they then send you to that specialist, and then you've got to go and revisit that specialist to make sure that it's right.
Yeah.
So it's like a 3-step thing. I mean, between this, there's like 3 months per like assessment.
Oh, so there's a delay between each of the
Yeah,
phases.
like it
Oh,
wasn't quick.
geez. Yeah.
So like the first one came, and they're like, okay, we think maybe it's autism. It was like, cool. Still didn't research it because I'm like, oh, that sounds all right. Because they didn't
Yeah.
really explain it to me. Like, I don't really know what that is. It's fine. And then when I got there, and then the second lady was like, yeah, it's autism. And then the third time was like her meant to be the official diagnosis.
Yeah.
But
The
like
real
when she
deal.
just gave it to me, it was just here's like 2 manuals. Good luck in the world.
So
Go
they
on.
literally
You
gave you
got
a
this, kid.
pamphlet and said, best of
They're
luck.
big books. I'll give it like there was
Okay,
one that
good.
was so I got them in there. But like there's one for me,
Okay.
and then there'd be one for anybody who's dealing with me. So it tells
So
them what
you
to
come with a
expect.
manual.
I literally now come with a manual. Like
You meet
that
someone and you're like,
the,
hey, before you get to know me, here are some operating instructions. Good luck.
I
Don't
sent
lose
you
the
a photo
remote.
of it the other
I
day. It
know.
was the blue book, right?
Yeah.
That's my manual.
Good
And
Lord.
but after that, that was pretty much it.
So do
And
you
then
remember how you felt the first time you heard the word autism? Because I can remember
well, it
exactly
messed
how I
me up a
felt.
little bit
Yeah.
because I didn't know what it was. I hadn't really heard the words Asperger's.
Sure,
And then I
sure.
had the ADHD on top of that. And then like there's this whole placebo thing coming along where you're absorbing all of this new information, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you got it all. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it's
So
almost
like
like
suddenly I'm like,
hypochondriosis.
oh my god, like there's like 100 symptoms in this book of like, and you know what? I haven't got half of them,
Yeah.
but for a while there, I thought I did.
Oh, for
Like
sure. And you probably
I was,
made them.
yeah, I was over analyzing everything, and then I was
Yeah.
like, it just drove me a bit crazy because I didn't really know. And then she was like, if you've got any questions, you got to send this email to this lady. So, and it was like an email thing. I was like, okay, I like
Yeah.
emails. But then she was like, take a week to get back to me. And I was like, and so I just gave that up. So it's just like me trying to learn what this thing was.
Wow.
And it's crazy because I never had that person to tell me what it was exactly. But they
Exactly.
told me when I was there. But it's like this one meeting where I'm observing information where someone's practically saying, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to need like 5 minutes
Yeah.
just
Can
to
I
take that in.
let this soak in a minute?
Because the moment you hear it, you don't necessarily. I imagine it's different in now because of how
It's
understood it
so much
is.
more mainstream now. Well, I think
So
that's what's
you know,
interesting is even the difference between when you were told and when I was told.
yeah,
Here's what's actually fascinating. I wonder if someone would have been diagnosed exactly halfway between us, if they would have had like the
yeah,
perfect experience, like the Goldilocks experience. Because like when I found out, there was so little information being spread about it that it was just like, here you go. I think this is what it is. And like, I mean, like I said, even growing up, nobody even really, I mean, everybody hinted about that, but nobody ever said it because they didn't have enough information about it. There weren't
no,
standardized screeners. There weren't all these different things that like lists of things to look for. And so when I found out, it was just like you said at the beginning of all of this, at the very beginning of this, it was largely seen as behavioral. Like I remember
yeah,
teachers and counselors would call home and they would just say, oh, Tyler's just really disruptive in class. And, he's just choosing to be a class clown. And he's
he's
making all
choosing
these
all this. I think
conscious,
that's the important word.
exactly.
Choosing.
But what's funny is like by the time that you received your diagnosis, it almost seems like it like followed the bell curve of when I was there was nothing. And then
It was
and
5
then,
years ago.
okay. So it already seems like by the time you've received your diagnosis, that it was already common enough that they had the books, they
Yeah,
had the pamphlets, and they were just like, go deal with it, rather than you know, if it was something more new, they would be like, okay, we're going to help you through this. This is what it is. This is what we can learn from this. But instead it was just like,
I
they just
think I would have
tossed you
handled
out.
it better nowadays because I know what it is. And I think if I didn't have it, I would still know
Yeah,
because I've learned a lot about mental health just because of the times
absolutely.
without looking, without researching, but just being here and being present and
Sure.
listening to people. And like, so if I take my experience away from it all, and then tomorrow they were like, "Oh, by the way, you got this," I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, I know what that means," and I
Yeah.
wouldn't be over panicked or overwhelmed. And
That makes
the
sense.
whole thing about the autism is like you're gonna get overwhelmed by things, and the
That's
exact thing that did with
inherent.
the diagnosis is they overwhelmed me, which is so ironic and beautiful and like so
It would
wrong,
be
but
like if
it's
you went
like
in for a broken bone and they broke the other bone to show you that a broken bone isn't that bad of a thing.
they put a cast on the wrong leg.
Yeah. Oh my. So this
They were
is
like, "This is what it
interesting.
would feel like."
I think I got lucky in that I had Sarah as almost like a guide through this,
Yeah,
because that's what was fascinating was I never really had, for me, when I first was told this, it was far less of a feeling of panic and much more, for me, it was a feeling of a lot of relief. Because
yeah,
I mean, at that point, it was 31 years of dealing with this and feeling crazy and being told by so many different people, hey, there's something broken with your brain. Like, it's not normal that
yeah,
you have to carry Benadryl in your pocket. It's not normal that, like, you know, all these things that you're dealing with, that's not normal, man. There's something wrong with you. And then to hear Sarah tell me this, and then she gave me information, and that just opened the door. From that moment on, I wanted to know more. And for me, it was more of a light bulb moment where I was able to say, oh my God, that's exactly what that is. Like, this isn't my fault. I'm not choosing to be a jerk about this. Like, this is something that my brain just handles differently. And it actually for me, it was like looking backwards through my life and shining a big spotlight on these different moments where I was able to
yeah.
say, God, I remember exactly how I felt there. I didn't do anything wrong. That was just how my brain handled that
See, but that came a lot
situation.
later for me.
Well, so it did for me too, because I would have been, that was probably 10 years ago. So I would have been 30 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So for
And
me, like, but I went
you,
through the panic, and then once I figured it out, I was good.
so
But
the
I would probably
relief
say it
came
took me a
late.
year
Yeah.
after diagnosis to be all right with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
And I
that's
bet that's
the
because
that.
you were doing it alone.
Well, yeah. Well, I had friends,
Sure.
but it wasn't like to this extent of I didn't know what it was, so I
Yeah.
couldn't really explain what it was. It's one of those things where I'm like, I just don't know how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
so I don't really. So it just drove me a bit crazy, and it's a bit like I don't know who I am right now.
Well, and there's absolutely no playbook for, I mean, there's a million playbooks on like the symptoms and this and coping this
Yeah,
and this, but there's nothing about how to deal with it when you're initially told. There's nothing about that.
no, but like
Maybe
it's
we need to
literally
do
the
that.
books that I got was so big that it was so much information to take in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, am I meant to just give this to everybody who I meet now? Like, hi,
Yeah.
I'm
Just hand it out.
Ash.
You
Please
should
read
just
this and come back
walk
to
around
me.
with a big sign on your chest that be like, before speaking, please read manual.
I could have like an actual little book holder
They could
right
just
here.
like a pop-up book. Like, here are the bullet points on how to talk to me.
But it
Okay, so
is
here's a
genuine.
question. What would you change about the diagnosis process that you think would make receiving this information better and how to process the information? Like, if you could orchestrate a new way of diagnosing people, how would you do it?
Okay, so straight off the bat, like as good as this new understanding is, and all of this, all this new information and this new acceptance is coming along, it seems like the number of people who are getting tested is increasing.
For sure.
So I think the one problem that I have was like the timings, but I'm unsure if that could be fixed now because of
Okay.
I imagine there's a lot of before this whole thing happened, that like overworked staff, and because I
Yeah.
don't think there's enough mental health staff in general.
Yep.
But for me, it was like there was gaps between the appointments, and then
Yeah.
there was a gap between the actual diagnosis, and then there was like this. It was just felt so stagnated. Like it was just like, okay, well, here we are, made progress. Now wait a while. Made
Yeah.
progress. Now wait a while. And it would have just been quicker. And I just felt like I was in limbo for a long time,
Yeah.
because even though they say to you, okay, we think it's ASD, there's no guarantee.
Exactly.
There's no.
Yeah,
And
it's not
then
like a
I'm just
blood
left
test.
wondering, do I have it?
Yep.
But what I did, which is really interesting, was I was determined as well not to look at it, because I was like, I want to see if I actually got this thing. Whereas, like, I knew if I researched it, I would just learn it, and the chances are that I would develop symptoms,
That makes sense.
like, in my head. So, like, I
Yeah.
was like straight out, like, not gonna read, not doing any of it. I'm just going into this, and I'm gonna see what happens,
Yeah.
because I want like this real thing. But for
Well,
me,
you
it's
didn't want to
just time.
psychosomatically apply it to yourself.
Exactly, and I just wanted to be quicker.
I think I mean, what you said hit the nail on the head. I think there has always been a gross discrepancy between funding that goes towards every other kind of medical condition versus mental
Yeah.
health. Because think about this. If you went in and they thought it was some form of cancer that could kill you, they
Yep.
wouldn't give you your first appointment and then 3 months later give you another appointment. And then 3 months later, the
No.
whole time you're sitting there thinking, am I going to die from cancer? But when it comes to something like
Exactly.
this, I mean, and in a way, a mental health diagnosis is something that, I mean, I would even go as far as to say, in a lot of ways, for many diseases, mental health diagnosis affect your life in a much larger capacity than physical diagnosis. I mean, like if you have a broken bone, within a year, you're going to probably be back to normal.
Yeah.
But with a mental health diagnosis, that's forever. You know what I mean? And like, I think it's ridiculous, like you said, the lack of funding and the lack of staffing and the lack of all of that that comes along with mental health diagnosis. And it's really
And
unfortunate because
yeah,
like you should not have gone through these large gaps of time for something
which was
life
just
changing.
waiting and like,
Yeah.
you know. But what was even? It's just so strange to. I think they should prioritize it by sort of condition,
Hmm.
because if they think, okay, he's got autism, so he's going to have this problem with his brain, and he's going to be thinking this, and like these people should know that I'm going to overthink it. They should know it's going to be
Exactly.
overwhelming me. So it should be okay. He's on top of the priority list.
I totally
Like,
agree.
like but it should be by condition, not by like. And I know that sucks to a lot of people because they're gonna be pushed back sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like not even with just ASD, but anything.
But I think they do that inherently already with medical things. Like if you go into the ER, if somebody comes in with a
Yeah,
broken foot, they're going to be pushed down the priority list if somebody else comes in having a heart attack. And so I don't think
exactly.
that there's anything wrong with prioritizing higher risk people. I think that's actually a brilliant idea. And I
Yeah,
think that if little changes like that were to happen, I think the diagnosing and the entire process would be a lot less scary because, and so that brings us around to a lot of the things that we've been hearing from people are they're afraid of diagnosis, or for their own
yeah.
kids, they really resist the idea of having their kid diagnosed for this because I think they still think that it carries with it a stigma. And so it's sad to me to see how many people avoid it because of the perceived repercussions of it. And I think if all of that were to get cleaned up, many more people would be receiving help and support and
Yeah.
love that like right now feel like you felt when you first found out. And I think
But
that's
for me,
horrible.
it's like, to clear it up, my negativity around the diagnosis isn't about the diagnosis. My negativity about the diagnosis is how the diagnosis was handled.
That makes total
Like once
sense.
I settled into it, like honestly, it was probably the best thing that could have happened,
Me too.
because now I just know it. This stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not just overreacting. I'm not just being weird.
You're not
I'm like,
choosing.
I can control it. I
Exactly.
can't in some points, and that helps me. Whereas before it, I was just like, oh, I'm doing this weird thing. I don't know why I'm
Yeah.
doing it. I'm sorry.
I
Like,
totally
I have
agree.
no explanation.
Yeah.
But the negativity isn't by diagnosis at all. Like,
No.
you shouldn't be afraid of that, because I think it
No, ever.
opens up of acceptance, and especially now.
Yeah, especially now. And
Yeah, just
I think
definitely.
you hit the nail on the head. I think for too long, people have been afraid of diagnosis. But I think it's an extremely liberating thing. And I think of it like in terms of food allergies. If you're allergic to peanut butter, you don't have to go into someone's home and explain to them apologetically, like, I'm really sorry. Like, I would, I wish I could eat this. It's not like that. It's like, oh, he can't have peanut butter. Get it out of the house, like, while he's here. That's it. But without the diagnosis, I think you're exactly right. It's too easy to take something like this and be like, oh, he's just choosing to be a pain in the ass today. Or, oh, he's just choosing to be obstinate about this decision. Or he's refusing to do this because it's hard. That's not it at
Yeah,
all. It's a food allergy. I
it's
mean, it
it's
is like
not even close to what it
you
actually is.
cannot do what they're saying you have to do. It's like it just doesn't work. It's like being told, like, oh, for the rest of your life, you have to use your left hand instead of your right. I'm right-handed, god damn it. Like, leave me
It's
alone.
literally like taking one of your triggers and then just putting that in the room, times it by 1,000, and just pushing you in and going, "Good luck. Good
Exactly.
luck with that."
Yeah, exactly.
So once you learn that there is something going on, you can then sort of figure out ways to cope with it.
Yep. That's the
So you
first
can
step.
you can't take medication for something you don't really know about.
No.
You can't have like a pain
So
in your toe and just assume you need something.
no, you
You
can't.
gotta go and get it looked at.
You got
Go
to
and
do
get
it.
that toe looked at.
So if you're watching this or listening to this, please do not be afraid of the
Or
diagnosing. Do
both.
not, or both. Hey, yeah, you could be that. Don't be afraid of this, because this is the first step. And once you take this first step, every step that will follow will be easier. And the great thing is now more than ever, there is more help than ever before if you take the first step. Like, if you get that
Yeah.
help, there's individualized education plans in school. Hey, look, we have a visitor. There's like, I think over here we call them IEPs. There's individualized education plans. There's allowances that are made. There's all these things that are made to help you get through the rest of your life, but you can't get those things unless you go get diagnosed, or like at least start that process. And so if you have kids or whatever, don't be afraid. Don't be so afraid of step 1 that you don't take it, because steps 2 through 3,000 are so great. You just have to take that
When you
first.
get the diagnosis, like, dependent on your age, obviously, and depends if you're a parent or the actual person who has it. But you might feel a little bit lost for a while. You
And
might
that's
feel a
fine.
little bit orientated. You might get a little bit scared about it and think bad things about yourself. But that's all right.
That's
Just know
normal.
that it's gonna be all right, and it
It's going to
really
be
does
fine.
help.
It really does.
What time are we on?
Look at us. We're doing good. So we are collectively making a conscious effort to stick closer to the 30-minute time limit. And what we decided was in doing that, we might end up with more episodes, but they will be shorter and easier to digest. So
Exactly. But the first episode we did, we nailed it
we
without
nailed
even
it.
having a timer. We're just
We
like,
nailed it.
done.
And then after that, it was like a sprawling train
Downhill.
crash. Yep. So today we're
Downhill
going to
to
wrap
our
this one up.
town.
But I think the good thing is if anybody watching this one, this will definitely open the door for a lot of people to have questions, because
Yeah.
everybody's experience is different. So reach out to us. We can circle back on this, and we can do a whole nother episode about diagnostic questions, and we can tailor that to whatever you're dealing with. And we can even probably find some resources for each, that we can post with the next episode we do, for where to get help. And there's plenty
We
of
should
information out
look
there.
into
We
that.
should.
Well, I know
But
my manual has a lot of stuff in it.
I want to copy that manual so bad, and I'm just going to carry it with me everywhere I go with you. And if like anybody gives you any guff, I'm going to be like, hey, Consult the manual. All right,
Study
man.
this
Well,
and insult him.
let's finish this episode like we finished all our episodes. Do you have a poem you would like to
I am going to
recite?
go for a poem today that is
Okay.
called Autism with a capital WTF.
Ooh.
What are you going for
Proceed.
today, sir?
I have no idea. I think I was just gonna do.
Tyler is really prepared, and
I'm super prepared. Actually, I have one that I'm gonna read that it's very honest because it's something that's been on my brain, and I'll explain when I get there. But why don't you kick us off, my friend?
okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Ooh. Okay, so I wrote this because I think you've heard it. It's the hashtag awkward one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is all about because it just felt right now because it sort of has that thing
It
that
does.
that whole thing that we've been trying to do about autism being great.
It is great.
That's
It's a superpower.
Autism has its perks, sure. Like I can get a badge at the airport, which translates to I'm special and I don't have to queue. Great. I can even wave at the thunder faces as they breeze past me. I mean, if you got it, flaunt it. Some people naturally assume I'm dangerous. Like the badge literally screams mentally unstable, like it could snap at any minute. So I throw out a growl every now and then just so they know what's up. The articles also tell me that my brain has advantages. My brain can't figure out what that means, but I always was the first to find Wally, so again, great. I also have great attention to detail. I'm a sketch artist's wet dream. A needle in a haystack is less impossible to me because I think outside of the box. I'm still in a box, but my box is painted in rainbow colors and smells like fresh cotton sheets constantly. This box has a unicorn named Klops a lot, and he wears socks even during a heat wave. Klops a lot went skiing, and he didn't bring me back a souvenir. That was a tough day in my box. Basically, I have imagination for days. Everything is more vivid with autism. Lights are more lighty, I guess. A bright flash, a soft touch, a loud noise, it all burns. Eye contact is like staring at the sun from a meter away. My brain is just kindling, searching for a spark. See, I don't get Sunday mornings in my mind. All I get is city rush hour traffic. And every social occasion is the equivalent of me bringing a frying pan to a gunfight. And if I'm lucky, I'll survive the first bullet. Everything I do is hashtag awkward. Awkward hugs, awkward smiles, awkward get me the fuck out of here eyes. I've always felt too awkward to ask for anything, so I've just made do. I learned to love myself, great. I learned independence, great. Then I spent so much time trying to fit in, I found myself more lost than I've ever been. Autism isn't all coffee and donuts, but it could sure as hell be a lot worse. Without autism, I wouldn't be here writing this. Without autism, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't change that for the world. Sure, autism makes you a little different. But what two people are truly the same? Find your quirks and embrace them. Learn how the grass feels the day after it's rained. Try and learn the language of the wind. You don't have to be autistic to appreciate the little things. Autism taught me it's okay to be weird. It's okay to be afraid. It taught me how we're all human and we're all wired differently. Autism, you monster trucker. You're freaking awesome. That was a long one, man.
That was a long one, dude. I love that one.
I wasn't prepared for that. I was like, this is
I
longer than I
was.
remember.
It was perfect, dude. I love that one. I feel like I need to write my own version of that because
Yeah.
I've done that. I've never dove into that and like wrote what it is to me and how it makes, because it is interesting in a lot of ways. You and I, it affects us the same, but in a lot of ways it affects us very different. And so I think I need to take a minute and do something like that.
Yeah, I love how I always love the polar opposite styles too.
I know.
So it'd be great to hear yours.
Well, mine actually does it. Mine comes into this in a subtle way because part of the way that mine affects me is not this. And I need to clarify this. I don't ever have doubt about the things that I do, but I just have a complete lack of awareness or thought a lot. Like I don't doubt myself. I just don't think of myself at all. Like I think so far outside of myself always that when it comes time to, like, if I ever do have to circle back and think of something I've done or something I am, I just am at a complete loss. And that's why you make fun of me all the time, because I'll send you something. I'll be like, this is probably shit. I have no idea. And it's literally because I just have no idea. I just don't have a frame of reference when it comes to myself. So like, same thing with, I don't look at myself in the mirror. And so I refuse to. And so like, I don't ever know, do I look okay today? Do I look bad today? I don't know. I don't have that reference. So this poem is about exactly that, because I'm preparing all of this stuff for my next book to come out. And I realized while I was getting all of that ready, my publisher sent me a photograph with all of the pages laid out on the floor, and it took up her entire apartment. And right there in my brain, I just thought, oh my God, I killed a lot of trees. And like, so this poem came from that place of like, I've never thought about that before. And so that's where this one came from. So here you go.
Here we go.
Here we go, baby. Were they worth the trees, the life still growing? Were they ever deserving of the fall, of the delimbing, the stolen home from winged and crawling? I say no, ashamedly, though I turn those pages. One day words will come to me, honest enough and filled with beauty, worthy of leaf and needle, of sawdust and the din before the pulp. Until then, I walk into forest and glade and weep before them. Hand to bark, I beg forgiveness. I choke out apology. That's it, bro.
I think the tree that you wrote that on would be proud. He'd be like, man, that was worth the death.
They're like, here's a couple of skin cells. Thanks for the poem. I did do math on this though.
The ghost tree now is out there like, whoa, man, that was
haunting me. I did do math on it though, because I was like, how many pages come from like a single normal sized tree? And apparently I think that it said about 8,000 pages of paper come from a small tree.
Wow.
So based on that, this book that's going to be coming out, each book will probably be about 150 pages. So it would take a lot of books to make even one small tree. So what I'm going to do is, before this book comes out, hoping that it sells a lot of books, I'm going to preemptively plant a bunch of trees. So then worst case scenario, I have offset the purchase of my book with words that may or may not be worthy with trees.
And I'm going to write the sequel called Haunted by Ghost Trees.
I love it. I look forward to it. All right, man. Well, this is another episode in the book. So, hey, I don't know where they are, but
we did all right with the time.
We did pretty good. We're like 10 minutes late, but like, whatever.
Always.
All right. So over somewhere here, maybe.
You never know where.
You never know where. Somewhere there's more episodes. And then somewhere like down in the corner of one of these corners, there's going to be a little.
Here, there's like a circle.
A circle here. do all those stupid things and like share this with people, because we really want to help a lot of people that are dealing with what we've already dealt with and we're dealing with on a daily basis. So,
and we really love the questions.
We love them. And if you know any charities or autism places that we could work with on this to broaden the reach or to whatever, let us know, because we're open. Or if you want to sponsor us and help us not be poor, we would also donate a percentage of that to the charities.
And if you're still afraid of diagnosis, come and talk to us.
Come talk to us.
Tell us your worries. Tell us.
We are open books.
There are necessities there.
Ooh, I like that. All right, everybody. We love you, and we will see you next week.
Finger guns.
Finger guns.